Hey, welcome back to the channel. It's middle of October and it's like 83 degrees today in Minnesota, which is unheard of, but it also means I don't have much of an excuse to not finish up the lighting install in the house. That's what we're gonna do today, which means going to a place that I'm not a huge fan of going, which is up there. When I did the lights last time, I told myself, hey, this is great, I'll never have to go up here again. Well, that's what we're gonna do today. Here we go. All right, as mentioned, this video is going to cover doing the segment of the Lumary install that deals with the peaks. We're also going to be extending the lights a little bit to deal with the gap between that peak and this peak, which is not something that's recommended. We're going to try to do it without breaking the strips to see if we can avoid breaking warranties, but we'll see how that goes. So for this video, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the physical install itself. If you want to see that, you can go to part 1 of this, which I will link down in the description. For the peaks though, there is one consideration that you need to make. So looking at the box, you can kind of see it. I know it's upside down. When you get up here to the point, you have two choices. You can either put a light right up into the point shining straight down, or you're going to have to do one on each side and make them mirror. These lights are done in even number strands. This is a 20 light strand, which means if you're just using one single strand, put a light right in the center, you're going to be off. If you put them on the sides, then you don't have one shining straight down. So it's really just an aesthetic question and how long your string is going to be and what you're doing with this. I think for me, on the small peak at least, I'm going to split the string in half, kind of put this in and have them pointing towards each other. But we'll see when I get up there, when I kind of see how the string lays out. All right, to accommodate the install, I've got my single string that's going to go up into that peak stretched out. Found the middle spot, threw a little piece of electrical tape around it just to make it easier to find when I'm up on the ladder. The rest of this install will go just like the previous then. We're stick them on, slide the lights off of the pucks, run a screw in and work our way down. I'm going to go from the center out just to make sure I'm all aligned, and that should get my outer points about equally spaced. So a slight change of plans, because unlike most of my projects, I actually measured this one, because looking at that strand on the ground, it looks far too long for that peak, and it is. So that peak from corner to the top and down is about 14 feet. That strand is 28 feet. I'm still going to do my starting point for the install, so I'm still going to use the center point on the strand as a way to get the alignment set, and then work my way down the physical install like we did before. That'll get me nice and balanced with the puck locations. After that, however, I'm gonna end up pulling these off of their bases and rerunning it from the source end, from the end that hooks into the power supply. And then that's gonna leave me with a bunch of extra cable, which I'm going to splice, which is, again, not something that is recommended. It is something that will void the warranty on this strand, because I am gonna end up cutting the strand in the middle. But it's the only way that I have to go from that peak all the way over to that peak, the one up there, that, without having a bunch of extra lights kind of hanging out on my roof. I had looked at whether there was a way to sort of bridge the two strands together. I couldn't find a way to do that that was going to work aesthetically for the way my light patterns tend to run. So we're going to give this a shot. And if this doesn't work, I will absolutely let you know that this was a bad idea. And we will kind of deal with that at that point. From Lumary, one of the things I was warned is there will be potentially voltage drops with doing this. I think I'm going to offset that though, because with the two peaks, I don't think I'm going to use the full string, which means I'll have less lights overall running across than the entire length of what the strand would have been. So I think that will offset some of my voltage drop issues that we may otherwise have run into. When I splice this as well, I'm going to be soldering the wires and running everything in heat shrink to keep it as watertight as possible to avoid the lines shorting out. And then the actual wire is going to be sort of hidden along my roof line up there. So I'm going to get to work on the install up in the small peak. Again, I'm going to use the center point on that line for spacing. I'll work my way down both sides, but then I'm going to pull the lights off and I'm going to restring them from the end that connects to the power supply, and then figure out where I can split the other end where it reaches right up in that corner there, so that I can do a bridge wire across. So that's what we're going to work with. Wish me luck. All right, so kind of as I guessed, it was about exactly half of the string that I needed. So what I've done here is I've spliced in a 3-wire 18 gauge cable. So original wire is 22, this is 18 solid strand. I did solder these and then shrink wrap them. And then just to kind of help myself out later, I use shrink wrap the color of the wires on the inside of this because I'm notorious for forgetting which went to where. So when I go to connect this on the other side, it's important to match up wire to wire, like to like. So the center wire here, which is usually the data wire in a 3-wire setup, I've got that in green. The wire with the single dash on it is red, and then the white wire is white. So I use those same colors on the other side once I run it. Now for the actual run, this wire is going to get tucked up kind of along my downspout under the edge of my shingles and run all the way around to the corner right there of my next peak. And then I'm going to start and re-splice in the remainder of this string and run it up and across. I'll probably do the same thing with the other peak of going up to the top to make sure that when I get to the top, I'm balanced so that the light pattern looks right. I don't want one light that's like right there and the next one down there because that would look weird. So I think having it balanced like that on the peak is going to give me the best overall light pattern. So I'm going to get this reinstalled and rerun, and then I'll go down along the edge, tucking that cable as I go till I get to the other end, and then I'll cut it off, solder in the other side of this strip, and then power it up and make sure that everything worked. All right, so we've got things plugged in for the first time, so you can see the lights on the top peak, and cable disappears. That's that cable right there. There's my second set of splices, and you can see the lights working here down at the bottom. Now there's a little bit of awkwardness happening. It is a little bit unstable, so I'm not sure if that's because of my splices yet. I have to see if maybe I have a somewhat loose wire, but it's working. It's just a little bit awkward. So this shows it a little bit better. You see how inconsistent these lights are and how they're all kind of flashing and going a little bit nuts. So that's the voltage drop from trying to extend that wire. So the power supply that I'm using to drive these is not meant to have this extra length of cable, and it's causing too much resistance, which is causing this problem. So that's not going to work for a solution. I think what I'm going to end up doing instead, because I have an extra string, is I'm going to end up running this in 3 strings. So that peak's going to be 1 string by itself, and this one's going to be 1 by itself, which is unfortunate, but I don't know how else to do this because of that voltage drop. These lights don't have power injection. If it was my LED strips, I could just add additional power into this and it would be fine. I might be able to do that with these, but I don't know if they are meant for that, and I don't want to blow them up, so that's not going to work. So yeah, that's too bad. So I think what I'll end up doing then is taking the last set that I have and installing it up there. Biggest problem I have with that too is my power's on that side and all of my other lights sequence right to left. So I'm gonna have to run some kind of extension cord from there over to there so I can start the light on the proper side, which is unfortunate and a lot of extra wires. Otherwise I'm gonna have one set running this way and all the rest running the other. So I think I'll take a look at the app and see if I have a reverse option in the app to avoid having to do that. Otherwise it's not gonna make any sense with the overall video, sorry, with the overall light show that I've got working here. All right, installing this last run then, this is gonna be most of 1 string, so it's a 25-foot string to do that. The thing with this, kind of the way it's laying out, it's not exactly 25 feet, it's more like 20 feet. So I have this little loop. So I started in the middle of the string, and you can see just by draping it, it's too long. So what I did is I ran from there. I used the middle spot to get it balanced so that the lights would be equal at the top. and then I ran all the way down into the corner, and then I reset from the connection point for the power supply, and I'm just restringing the lights now up and over, and then I will finish this side and everything will be right. This extra bit of slack then I'll either end up tucking away somewhere or cutting off just to keep it nice and clean. So if you do end up cutting wires, make sure that you seal the ends. You don't want to let any moisture or anything get into there, so do cap them off and tape them up correctly if you end up doing that. Okay, so we've got my upper peak run and my secondary peak run. Neither one of these is controlled by the app yet. That's a preset thing that I had when I was playing around, and then this one's just in its generic all white. So we need to get these into the app. The only part of this I'm going to show you right now, and I'll do a separate video on the app itself, is how to get these into pairing mode. To do that, according to the manual, you should be able to just turn them off and turn them back on, and they should automatically go to pairing mode. Mine don't. The way that I found to do it is on that control box right there, there's a button. And if you push and hold that button for about 5 or 10 seconds, these lights are going to start to throb. They're going to like pulse on and off, and that's going to be pairing mode. I'll show you what that looks like. All right, so see my lights are steady on, so I'm going to press and hold this button right in the middle here. I'm just going to hold it for a few seconds. Okay, now we're in pairing mode. Well, not the way I intended to do it, but the lights are now all synced together, and the house looks pretty amazing actually. So I like the end effect. I just would have laid it out a little bit differently from the start if I had thought through, or rather realized some of the segment restrictions and that I couldn't jump her from one peak to the next. Now with a stronger power supply, maybe that would have worked. But as it was too much resistance, and you saw what happened with the voltage drop. So this is now running 3 independent segments. The small peak is one controller, the big peak is a second controller, and then the bottom of the house is a third. And then of course I've got my LED strip lights running as well. So I'm going to do some separate videos on how to actually set up syncing between multiple strips, how to get these connected into the software, and then how to get your other third-party devices like your LED strips to look like they're in sync with your floodlights when really they have nothing to do with each other. So all of that's coming soon. That's going to bring us to the end of this DIY dad video with this very brightly lit house behind me. So this being the end of a DIY dad video, I of course owe you a dad joke. And yes, it's the end of a DIY project. There's still tools out. There's still stuff that isn't done. There's still things that aren't tied down. I'll get to that later, probably. So, why are skeletons afraid to go trick-or-treating? They're gutless. Right, remember, with any DIY project, doesn't have to be perfect. Most important step is just to do it. Take care, stay safe. Catch you on the next one.